Hey there. Welcome to this month's episode of the Fraternus Forge podcast. This is a forum for young adult Catholic men and women to come together in conversation on topics of faith and morality, for as iron sharpens iron, so one man or woman sharpens another. Really excited that you're here with us this month. Thank you for tuning in. Our guest is Michelle Bedard. Michelle is part of the leadership team at Holy Family Parish in Brentwood, Tennessee. Awesome campus. Definitely go take a visit if you can. Don't go without a map. It's huge. You'll get lost. But in addition to that, Michelle is also a data analyst for a financial consultant and advisor in the broader Nashville Metro. And so she brings with her to this episode a good degree of corporate experience, which I think is especially relevant given that the episode this month, the topic, is faith in the workplace. Michelle and I break into this conversation by really exploring, how do you choose a career in the first place? How do you find something that's the right fit for you? It can be anything from passions and interests to skills. Hey, what are you good at? The opportunity to make an impact and a difference in others' lives and what that looks like to you, what motivates you. And then faith. What does the company you're working for stand for? And then on top of that, once you're actually in that career, how do you set up rhythms to make sure that you're set up to succeed and sustain yourself over the long haul? Do you have friends in the place that you work? What sort of expectations are they setting on you for travel? How do you balance? Make sure that you're making time to recharge. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Knowing yourself in that way and knowing, okay, I have been around people all day. It's time for me to go home and be with my book, be with my cup of hot chocolate, and y'all leave me alone until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's how I'm going to show up and be my best self. Not speaking personally, not me at all. Not an introvert at all. And then we wrap up with a brief conversation around evangelization in the workplace as well. When is it right to bring up Jesus explicitly? When do you just let your actions speak louder than words? When do you sort of look for ways to bring folks into community, and how do those all blend together? So this was an awesome conversation, especially the section about burnout. Just being real with y'all, I'm just carrying a lot. So please say a prayer for me if you would, that I learn how to balance my schedule a little bit more and learn how to say no a little more effectively. And if you're in a season of burnout, or if you've struggled with that before, highly recommend this episode. It's always a good gut check. That's it. Really appreciate you being here. Excited to share this episode with you. Let's jump into it.
I really like career progression. I really like finding something that you like to do, because you're spending 40 hours a week doing it. So you might as well find something that is a good blend of what you want to do and what you're good at doing. And then if you have that faith element, or something that kind of grounds you outside of just making money, then I feel like that's the perfect combination, and that kind of it just makes for a good 40 hours as opposed to I can't wait for this to be done.
So there's interest, skill set, and then the faith component of it as well. Those three sort of come together.
Yeah.
And have you found that in your career, in terms of your background to this point so far?
Yeah. So I work as a data analyst. I've always worked as a data analyst. I really like being a data analyst.
That's awesome.
It's very fun.
Sounds like you got the interest part down.
Yes. Yeah. So when I first started off in college, trying to pick a major, I was I kind of want to do something math, but I don't really know. Okay. And then I just had some conversations with people at school about what major are you? And got talking to someone who was in the business school, who's doing IT management, which is kind of the data analytics major that they had at the time, because it was back before it kind of exploded. Okay. And she was telling me about this is business and helping people make good decisions with numbers. Okay. I was wow, this is it. Because I came in as a math major, and I was what am I going to do with this? I don't want to just crunch numbers, or I want to be able to make a difference. And so I feel it's really fun for me and exciting to be able to take the mess of all the data and be able to be wow, this is something we should go towards. This is going to help people, help our customers. And this is something that we should avoid, because it's not tracking, even though we love this idea. It's not something that the customers love. So maybe we should not. And it's
maybe we should not.
Yeah, and I mean, it's easier to do that when you have numbers, because then people are just like, you're just making stuff up. It's like, no, like
I actually am not.
Yeah.
I love that. And have you always been like passionate about math, like in that regard, or?
Well,
because I know like is sort of what led you to the numbers role.
I've always liked math because there's an answer.
Okay.
So like growing up, I really liked math. I also really liked history.
Okay.
Science was not my jam. So that like kind of was the only thing I knew. And I mean, people that like can write for a living, that's great, but I'm not that creative. So like like English was only fun as like reading, like because it's like, oh yeah, that's cool to read interesting stuff. Yeah. But I was like, I can't do anything in that career path. So I was like, okay, not something in the writing space, English space, not something in the science space. So, I mean, I did like at one point, like way back, toy with the idea of like, maybe I'd want to do something like in law or history or whatever. But I think just like the numbers came easier. So it's like, I liked them both, but math was more of something that felt natural and something that I was like excited about doing for the rest of my life. And like, for fun, I like go to history museums. So like, like it's not like that's like completely gone, but that's also not what I felt like was where like my strongest skill set lied, I guess.
Okay, gotcha. I love that. Like, so there's that natural aptitude. Like you sort of looked at your skill sets, and then it was, how do I want to use this in a way that's meaningful? Because I'm sure there were like other careers where you were like, math is super useful here, but not meaningful. Like, can you think of some examples of those, or like other careers that you saw math majors jumping into?
Well, I wasn't a math major for very long. So in my mind, so I like quickly like was like, I want to be able to do something with this. So I kind of quickly pivoted into that like business route of like applied math. Because I felt like this is just what I'm putting down, kind of but I was not entirely sure what I want to do. So I had those conversations like pretty early on.
Gotcha.
But like being a professor is not something that like I would have wanted to do, or like doing research like in a lab. Do math people do research in a lab? I don't know, but like doing like research projects like through university and like like all that stuff. I was like, this does not feel like what I want to do. So I think because I kind of had tried to look for something that was more applied right at the beginning, I didn't come up with like a whole list of like, oh, these are no's in the math specific space. I'm sure there's like a lot of good things you can do in that space. And like, if you like major in math, you can definitely do like data analytics. So like I could have gone that route, but like as like a pure math career, I also knew I was not smart enough to like come up with the next theory. There is no way. So like that was off the table.
Section 1A, like da 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 da.
Yeah.
The dissertation of this thesis, and I'm just throwing words around at this point, but
I mean, I that sounded smart. That sounded right. That sounded like if I was to make a math theory, I'd probably use those words.
Nice. Okay, thanks. Okay, so there was the interest, and then there was like maybe not a repulsion from other areas, but it was like not for me. I want to apply this in a way that is meaningful.
Yes.
And there were those conversations, which I love that. Yeah. Part of me wishes that I had like had more deliberate conversations in high school and college. I think I had the conversations that I needed to, but I didn't think of that as a vehicle for, I need to figure out what the next season looks like. Let me talk to the people around me, or hey, there's these things called school counselors that's like technically included in my tuition. So I could go talk to one of them and kind of figure it out that way. So I love that that was a component in there. How did you what else sort of played a role in you landing in like a data analysis role? Like, were there other things that made you think like, oh, numbers and helping people make smart decisions with those numbers is really like, that's the good crossroads?
Yeah, I think like kind of not as much from a technical perspective, but just from a where do I want to do my data analysis work perspective, is like growing up, like my dad was in law enforcement, my mom's a teacher. So like they kind of had like this serving the greater good, like whole, that like growing up experience was like, it had that flavor kind of sprinkled throughout. So I like knew I didn't want to just like go to work to make money, because I mean like money's great and it like gives you the freedom to like do good things in the world, gives you the freedom to like donate to good causes. So like there's definitely nothing wrong with that. But I wanted the way I made money to feel like I was actually doing some of that like serving in my 40 hours a week.
Did you volunteer as well? Like didn't you say that? Like
Yeah. So growing up, kind of did all of the things that you're supposed to do to get into college. At least you were back in the day, you know, like Key Club, NHS, like all the things where you got the hours. But like some of the most like fun service stuff was, I was like super into horses. I would say I still like horses, but like I haven't like seen one in a while in person. So like I must not be into horses.
Don't you have like the shelf of books downstairs that are all horse books?
I have a lot of horse books. So it's lovely.
I want to analyze data around horse hoof density.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I thought of this earlier.
Yeah, that's right.
I should switch.
I don't know. Anyway, I feel like I cut you off.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so one of the volunteer things I did that I really liked was like there was a farm that had like super gentle horses, and they brought in like children with disabilities, like either like physical disabilities or like mental disabilities, and they had volunteers like walk on the sides of the horses to make sure that they wouldn't fall off, or lead the horse. And it would kind of like take these kids and like bring them around, like have them do different activities, and that was really fun because I liked horses and it was a way to hang out with horses, but like also it was really fun to like see the kids, and like even, and like there were some kids that were like super, super excited, which was super fun to see. But then there was like other kids who like you could like tell that they were like a little like less comfortable, but then like as a session went along, they would like there was always like little games and stuff. They'd like reach out and like grab whatever thing they're supposed to do for the game and stuff like that. And that was great. And then like it was just nice to be like, this kid's not gonna fall off. Like I'll make sure that they like don't topple over, and
creating like that safe environment for them to like explore and have fun and know that you are there to stop like injuries or other misadventures from happening. Yeah.
So that's one that like sticks out. And then I guess another fun one, because volunteering is fun. Yeah.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yes.
When you said a second ago, like all of those things that you have to do in high school, like you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
My friends will tell this story. I was in college freshman year, and I had heard somebody say like, oh, you're supposed to have like volunteer experience on your resume. And so I went and did alternative spring break in Toronto. We did like a lot of really cool stuff for sure.
Yeah.
And helped a lot of people. But in the sort of intake session where they were like, so why do you want to do this? And I was like, well, I really would love to have a volunteer section. I actually said that. I was like, I really want to have this in my volunteer section on my resume.
Nice.
They were like, okay, great.
maybe you'll find another reason by trying to get done with your volunteer week.
Right.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I was going to say, like, growing up, there's another thing I did, which was, like, flower arranging. They took, like, all these flowers from, like, grocery stores that were, like, too old to sell, and they would arrange them and then give them to people in hospitals that, like, didn't have, or, like, nursing homes that, like, didn't have, like, any, like, flowers or, like, family visiting.
Gotcha.
So that was really cool. But your story about the spring break reminds me that I did a lot of spring break / fall break trips.
Yeah.
And, like, a whole summer doing, like, volunteer work. I really like home repair stuff.
Okay.
And so that was what I did.
Habitat for Humanity.
Well, I actually did a couple different organizations. Nazareth Farm, West Virginia.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Okay.
Loved that place. And then Hand in Hand Ministries, which is in Augsburg, Kentucky.
Okay.
So that's the place I did the summer at, and I've like been back since. And like having like a chance to like work with your hands and like see the impact that you're making is just so wonderful. I like joke around with people. I'm like, maybe I should have just been in construction, but instead of analytics, because it's so nice. But like everyone I've met with like those opportunities has just been like such a wonderful person, and
that's awesome.
It like is so life-giving to like do volunteer work. So I've really enjoyed that.
Being in that space and just seeing the benefit firsthand on like another human. is a motivating force as well that sort of like helped in your career discernment, where it's like, I want the work that I'm doing to have tangible impacts where I can like help somebody.
Yeah.
And do you still experience that now in the role as a data analyst? Like, do you bring an insight to a meeting and people are like, wow, like, Michelle, this is great. Like, we totally thank you for this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually had a project kind of recently where there was some stuff that I was measuring, so it wasn't like the most like technically advanced, super fun analysis, but it was like something that I was able to report on, and there was a lot of people that came up to me and were like, this was so helpful, and it was so unexpected, but also just like really nice to be like, wow, I helped give information that is allowing these guys to like make a decision that's going to impact the business, or at least like give them more context so that they're not like flying blind, because nobody likes that feeling when you're like have to make a decision and you're like, this is my best guess, but it's so much nicer to like have some support. So that was great, because that was unexpected, just because I always think that like super fun technical analysis is going to be like what gets people like so excited, but it's like, no, it's sometimes just like the like simple things where like you can like provide like one number, as opposed to like you do this and that and you like turn around and jump on one foot, like then that is what's going to move the needle. It's like, yes, but also that one number that was super helpful. So
it's like there's the theory, I'm sure, which is really, really interesting. There's like the numbers element, but then there's also the practical side of it, where it's like, I, through these numbers, have like helped somebody understand something and influence the direction of the business.
Yeah.
And they've now have clarity and certainty and are able, hopefully, to sleep a little better at night, knowing that, because like, okay, you might know this, but like I'm obsessed with the book Moneyball. Like I love the book Moneyball. Obsessed with it.
Good.
It's such a good book. Have you read it?
I've watched the movie. I'm sorry.
You know the premise of the movie then?
Yes, and I know I have it like in my possession on my nightstand. I just can't remember if I've read it, or if it's in the to-read pile or the have-read pile.
It's so good. If you haven't read it, definitely recommend. But you know the premise of the movie, where it's like all these baseball players are evaluated by the wrong statistics or informed or misinformed uses of those statistics, and then somebody steps in and is like, actually, we need to look at these statistics, and it changes the future of this ball club, which is so cool. And it changes the lives of the players who are part of that team. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm not a data analytics specialist the way you are, but I still appreciate that knowledge.
But you could be.
I could be.
If you get this excited about Moneyball and stats, I feel like you could make a move.
Maybe I missed my calling.
Not miss, just like you can pivot and still be into analytics and still be doing something wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So like there's the passion or the interest, there's the skill set, there's making a difference in people's lives. All of those are awesome. How does finding a workplace that supports at least Christian, if not Catholic values, or at least aligns with that most of the time, how does that sort of factor in? Because personally, my experience has been, especially in today's climate, most corporate environments do not align with Christian or Catholic values. And often, like in most cases, they're promoting things or endorsing things that are like running in opposite directions.
Yeah. Well, I guess let me give you like some of my career path background, because that might help. Like out of college, I did consulting with like a big firm, and we did forensic data analysis, which is not like dead bodies. It's just like bringing numbers into court. So it's that a lot of the stuff I did was like fraud-based work, which definitely like has an element of figuring out like what went wrong and trying to correct those wrongs. And then after that, I went into healthcare, and that like as a healthcare company, most of the time, everyone that's working there like has a focus on like, we want to help these people. And so that work was like the analytics work was, I feel like, slightly less direct in the way that I could see like the impact. It was like helping the organization as a whole, but like which had a good mission of like providing good healthcare, but it wasn't as much like the first job where it was like doing this analysis and uncovering like how much money needs to be like given one way or the other to like correct a wrong. And then the work I do now is on like the personal finance space. So that is, I feel like, very like tangible to someone because like your personal finances kind of like help you sleep at night or keep you up at night depending on how they are.
Right.
And that like that work, I feel like also similar to the first job, but even more so has like a direct like impact in like the analytics work I'm doing into the customer. And I can like see that tie, but then it's similar. My current job is similar to the healthcare job in that like the mission as a whole feels very altruistic and like very good and like on a good path. So I have like not always like worked at a spot like where there's been like a faith component tied into the work. But I feel like because of having like when I was doing my career searches, I was looking for companies that had a good mission. So having that to like fall back on made it so that I was able to see like, okay, the work that I'm doing is impacting people in a positive way. And like even at like some of my like previous jobs, I ended up like meeting and becoming friends with other people that were like very faith-filled and like shared like similar values. And so that was really great because even though like the organization as a whole may not have had that like written down, being able to like find those people to connect with on a personal level and like talk about just like life stuff in addition to work stuff, I think has been like really helpful because then like you have like good people around you, so you want to be a better person yourself. And so that kind of like helps like during like the 40 hours when like you're at work trying to like do your thing, you also have like someone there who like cares about you on a personal level too. Yes. And like is supportive of that way. I think it would have like, luckily I haven't had the experience where like people like try to like drag you down in like your faith or like really push you to like kind of bend the rules to the point of breaking. I feel like that would be a very like challenging work environment. And but I would like hope that even in those situations, even if the company is like that and generally people are like that, there would be some like-minded person that you can connect with. And also maybe that's like a nudge to look for something that makes it easier to like follow your values. And then, like, I mean, working with also people that are like definitely like more vocal about their faith, which has also been like one of the experiences that I've had, has been really great because you're able to like learn about like their different faith, like even like non-Christians. Like I've worked with people that have like taught me about like their religion. I'm like, wow, this is really great, and it's gotten me more excited about learning about Catholicism. And like same with like speaking with like other Christians too. I'm like, okay, that's super interesting that we think the same in this way, but like there's kind of a deviation here, and like let me like dig into that and learn about that. So I think that like having like those conversations with like an open like mind, like even with people that are like less religious, can like really spark like an interest in you like deepening your own faith. So that has been like a fun experience, I guess, like just kind of as I've been learning more about like others and like their journeys, having like more inspiration to like dig deeper into my own.
Definitely. Yeah, that's huge. You touched on like a lot of really cool stuff there. I definitely feel the need for someone at work who gets where you're coming from and is coming from a similar place. That's huge.
Yeah.
because having that camaraderie, like somebody gets me and like somebody really understands me. If you go too long without that, I feel like it really starts, like it can wear on you. I don't know if you've experienced that in other roles, but
yeah. I had like some projects when I was doing the consulting work where I was traveling a lot. So it was just that wore on me. And it was just like a very like hectic time with traveling Monday through Friday and like working long hours and then like getting home and being exhausted and then just like trying to do it again week after week. So it wasn't like, I felt like people kind of got me, but there wasn't that much that I didn't have that many deep relationships because it was just like trying to keep my head above water in like some cases. So that's been like my closest experience. But I definitely agree that like that time was very challenging.
There's definitely something. And I think remote work kind of flies in the face of that as well, where it's like not being around people in person kind of inhibits those relationships from forming. I do have one like related question. Yeah. Did you like traveling for work at all? Because I hear very mixed reviews on traveling for work.
Yeah. So
you got something to say here. I like it.
Okay, well, I'm a homebody, so I'm a homebody, so I don't really like traveling at all. I hate flying. I hate the shuffling through the security line, the being stuck in the airport. It's like rush, then wait, and then you're like at the mercy of like the pilot. It's like when you're driving, you gotta like move yourself. So I do not like traveling. I mean, there's some like perks when you like do corporate traveling because they like give you stipends to like go out to eat and stuff like that. So like you get to try good food or whatever. But I just wanted to be home. It was also like a time in my life when like I was doing a lot of traveling when I was engaged. So I was trying to like plan a wedding at the same time. And then as being like newly married, still traveling like Monday through Friday, I was like, hey, spouse, nice to be married, but like, I'll see you on Friday. So I think, I think my personality was not like super well suited for travel. And then my time in my life made it like more challenging because I was going through like personal life, like transitions, all good things, but like also a lot of change. So
kind of conflicted with some of the stuff you were changing. Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like at one point somebody had told me, make like one life decision at a time. So like have like, if you're making a big decision, don't make like 5 big decisions at once. Don't like decide you're gonna like get married, move, change jobs, change your diet, change your hair, whatever, like all at the same time. Like obviously some of those like will have to be made at the same time. Like if you're living separate from like a spouse or someone you're engaged with or whatever, you have to like do both of those things at once. Like not a big deal, but like try not to do that as much as possible. And I felt like traveling unsettled me in a way that it was hard for having life transitions as well as traveling. But anyway, that's just me personally. Now, you have an inside look into my life. My personality.
I share some of that. I have one quick follow-up question. Were you excited about traveling at all when you like first started it? Like, oh, this will be cool, or was it just like a nah from the get-go?
So traveling was fun because it was like 1 week at a time. You knew in advance, as opposed to being told like on Friday, hey, on Monday, you're going to travel for 9 months, Monday through Friday. That's rough. But when you're like, 3 weeks in advance, I'm going for a training. And then like, I get to hang out with all the people that started with me and like see people from different offices I don't normally see and like
that's different.
Do fun things together. And that was fun. But
not so much the spur of the moment.
And it was like spur of the moment, but then like for a long time. But but the training traveling was fun. Because I also had like a friend that worked in a different city, but at the same company. So we were in college together, so we were the same year. So we started at the same time.
Oh, that's great.
So I always got to see her at trainings, which was just so much fun. But it was, I mean, but also you don't do that much work during training. You're like learning stuff, which I love learning stuff. So that, I mean, it was the perfect work travel experience.
I just share a lot of what you said. It kind of took me a little while to like get the travel bug. or at least that specific travel bug out of my system. I like vacations. I think everyone likes vacations.
Yes, that's why it's a vacation.
That's why it's vacation. And I think there was something in me that sort of equated work travel to like being like a vacation. And I also have done like some touring for music.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets to this point. I think going into it, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be so cool. Like, I'm going to know Springfield, Missouri so well because I've played this brewery there and I've been to like some restaurants. And so if people are going to Springfield, I can be like, hey, like check this place out. Or like, I love coming back to Springfield. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. But the weekend I did that run out there, I think I drove like something like 16 hours in 2 or 3 days. Oof. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And all I did was like, I went out there, I played a show, had some barbecue and came home. It was really dumb. And work travel was just like that too, where I went to Chicago for a week and learned about Workday. And in the evening, I like got spaghetti at this one place. And I was like, wow, that was really good. Yeah. I don't know I'm going to tell anyone about it, but it was good. It was good.
Yeah. I feel like work traveling is also kind of lonely because you don't have like your community of like who you're normally within your city that you live in. But like if you don't like the person that's on the project with you, or if you're on a project that's like you and like one other person and like you're like different ages or different life stages or something like that, and you're not like gonna go out to dinner together, it's like kind of sad to go out to eat by yourself. Yeah. It's cool if like you want to go out to eat by yourself. I'm like, you are an awesome person whenever I see someone in a restaurant by themselves. But it's just it's kind of sad when like you have to.
I did not choose this by myself.
Yeah. It's like I would like to have a friend, but like I don't, so like it's okay.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah. What you said a second ago of it being lonely kind of made me think of another book that is not Moneyball. This one is called The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Okay. And it's a really good book. It's sort of like half prose, it's half narrative. They kind of like interweave between each other, and there's a couple of different storylines. It's a really unique book in how it's written. But the premise that they sort of put forward is it better to have a broad swath of experiences that are all really, really shallow? So if you think about it from a travel perspective, is it better to go to all the major cities in the US once in your life and have maybe like one meal there? Or is it better to go like to 10% of those and spend a week in each one? Or is it better to just like pick a home base and like live there and put down roots and go deep? And like there's like the existential crisis of going all of these places and like nobody knows me. That's sort of like one side of things. But then the other side, even though you're going deep and you have all of these intimate relationships in one place, there's always that sort of FOMO. Like, oh, I'm missing out on stuff. You know. Yeah. Does that ring a bell? Like.
Yeah. I feel like because I did so much travel, I decided I didn't care for this travel anything. I just want to be home. But I feel like, I mean, that's a real feeling. Like I don't want to miss out on things. Yeah. Like if I like even like if I have friends here that are like getting together and like I'm busy and I can't do it because like I had previous plans, or like I was like, no, I need to like take a day for myself and I don't want to schedule anything. I don't want to like drive to this hike or whatever because I need like to sleep in or whatever. Then I mean there is that very real FOMO, which I guess it's just a balancing act. Everything in life I feel like is kind of, you got to just try a little bit this way, try a little bit that way, dial it in, and until you get like the balance that you want for your life.
Hit that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really good segue to the idea of like avoiding burnout, because I know like it's like rest is a part of our faith.
Yeah.
Like Sabbath is a part of our faith, and I know that there's the explicit Sabbath of like keep holy the Lord's Day, keep Sunday holy, but then there's also, we were not made for work. Work was made for us as a way of connecting with God, part of our obedience on our path to heaven, but there's also rest. So what has that balance looked like in your career? Because I'm definitely not perfect at it.
Yeah.
And just sorry to cut you off, but like I think the balance could also extend beyond like what the workday looks like. There's work, but then there's also extracurriculars and volunteer activity and time with friends. So what does that balance of all of those things look like?
Yeah. I mean, this is hard. I feel like no matter like what stage of life you're at, you're going to like have to keep tweaking this to like fit where you are now. Cause like where you are now is different than where you were a year ago, which is definitely different than where you were 5 years ago. So there's definitely a lot of tweaking that you have to do, at least in like my experience. I feel like something that I don't remember who told me, and I'm sure that they got it from somewhere else. So not plagiarizing. I just don't know the source.
There's a works cited page attached to this podcast.
Okay, perfect. Is that like if you work with your mind, like rest with your hands, and like vice versa. So like that's probably not the exact phrase of it, but like all day if I'm like doing data analysis, typing, like thinking and like not being physically active, but just like sitting at my computer and doing that. Yeah. Then like to rest is like to do work with my hands, like to go and garden, to do like yard work, to do like home repair work. I think that's part of the reason I like love doing that so much. Yeah. Is it's very different. And like, I feel like most people have like corporate jobs where like you like your computer knows you've done work, but like you can like look up from your computer and you're like, I have done nothing all day.
I've
and
stood
like,
here.
Yeah. And like being able to like see something like that comes out of that like physical labor is, I feel like a form of rest. It's not like your typical like sit down in silence kind of rest, but it is like a life-giving like way to like use like your body in a way that you don't for your work day.
That's really cool. I like, will you say that phrase again? It's work with your...
See, I don't know if I know the exact phrase, but it's, because I've like paraphrased in my mind, it's something like if you work with your mind, rest with your hands. Okay. Or
vice
rest
versa.
With your hands, work with your mind or whatever. Because then it's like if like I've not had like a physical labor job, but like the example that like I know someone has brought up is like if you're out doing like construction work all the time, then like rest for you could be like sitting at home reading. Like that is,
or like go watch a movie or something.
Yeah, go watch a movie and like kind of switching up what you're spending like your required work time doing. Yeah. As a form of rest. So I mean, I like to try to do that. I feel like I have a better like weekend when I like go outside rather than like when I'm inside all weekend. Sometimes I like wake up or not wake up, but like it's like Sunday night and I'm going to church and I'm like, it's the first time I've left in 3 days. Maybe I should reassess my life for next weekend. But yeah.
Hot take, that was definitely me like driving down here for this. Yeah. I technically had today off work and I told myself I was going to spend it out in the yard like working on the trees and like I have this drip irrigation system that I need to figure out and like have some branches I need to cut up and haul around. But my brother invited me to join his fantasy baseball league. And you know how much I love baseball statistics. Yeah. So I spent like 5 hours staring at my computer being like, I don't know if Ryan Freeman is worth the $45 salary people are asking for him because look at his run production, look at his RBIs. And at the end of it, I was just like, I cannot do a podcast right now. I can't. I have no brain. Like my brain is not working.
Well, it's okay. You have tomorrow.
That's
you
right.
That tomorrow. Make up for it.
That's right. So I totally feel that like that balancing act looks different season to season. Can you tell me about some times when it's been sort of out of whack, how you recognize that it was out of whack, and the steps that you took to like rebalance it?
Yes. I feel like more often than not, it's out of whack. Like it's not, I feel like it's hard to like feel like, oh, I've got a good balance this week. Oh, and another thing that I've heard is like balance is not 50-50. Like sometimes you need to be 100% in like one area, but then like that season has to end. You can't be in that 100% like work, achieve, or like 100% rest, recover mode.
I have a quick thought on that. Yeah. The metaphor that I like to use is like having mason jars and like each jar is a project. Yeah. And if I've got like 12 different mason jars open at the same time and I'm pouring into all of them, that's a lot of like me switching between jar 1 and jar 6 and thinking, okay, well, where's jar 6? How's jar 7 doing? Versus like if I can give my focus time to jar 1, fill it up, get the project done, put the lid on it, then it's like, I know that's done. I can not think about it for a while. And now I have 11 jars. Yeah. So that sort of goes with what you're saying. Like, if I give something my focus for a short amount of time, I can simplify my life, but I can't focus on jar 1 for like 6 months.
Yeah.
I will not be a human being at the end of that.
Exactly. And like sometimes it is like 50-50 and like, but just not always. And whenever I heard that, I was like, that is very helpful because like, then you don't feel guilty when it's like, oh, I spent like so much time at work, like, but it's like, well, that was a really big project. Like that was like a very important like deliverable that you had. But I think for me, I'm naturally like an overachiever, workaholic kind of person. So then like, if I'm like, oh, it's a season of something being important and urgent, then I forget to get out of that season. And I am not like, I'm not good at recognizing this. I don't have any advice for anybody, but like, thank goodness I am married to a very good man because he like helps keep me in check. And like, and I feel like good friends can do that too, where it's like, I haven't seen you in a long time. Like, how's it going? And you need people like that in your life to like hold you accountable for like being a human and not getting like sucked in because everyone thinks that like their thing is the most important thing. So like from a work perspective, like everyone at work is gonna be like, this is like super important. And like it all probably is important on some level, but like if you don't like have people to remind you to like focus on yourself at times, then like you can just like kind of fall into the trap of everyone's asking me for things and I want to please them. And so like, I'm going to do their thing and then I don't get enough sleep and then I'm cranky and then nobody wants to be around me.
Right. Yeah. That, oh man, it's so tough to say no to when somebody like, cause I'm sure you've had it. And my guess is you're probably, would you say that you've grown in your ability to do that over the years? Because I know I have.
Yes, I have. I think like the work culture I'm in right now is really good. Like they want you to like be focused when you're at work and be focused on family when you're at home. So like, obviously it's not going to always work out like this, but like the goal is like you work 40 really hard hours at work, but then like you go home and you're not working anymore.
Right.
And that has been helpful. And that's like a company by company thing. Some companies like definitely try to like pull you in and like get like as much out of you as they can.
Yep.
But it's helpful. It's like, it's just very helpful to be like, okay, I'm at work. I'm going to be focused at work. I'm not going to be like worried about like this, like, I don't know, this like changing my internet provider or whatever at home. It's like, that's a home problem. I'm going to focus on that at home. And like, you know, sometimes like you got to call during a lunch hour or whatever. So it's not perfect, but like, like that, I feel like it's helpful for balancing it. And that's also why I really like working in an office because I have that commute to like switch my brain over where like when I'm driving to work, I like start thinking about like what I have to do for the day. And when I'm driving home, then I can like do my best to like have like a slowdown and like my mental wheels spinning so that like by the time I get home, like I'm not like, okay, there's so many things from work. Like I want to like tell you all about my day and like all of these like annoyances, which is like nobody wants to hear someone talk about all the annoyances and all the things that they got going on from their work day. But yeah, so that was a roundabout way to answer, I think, a question that you asked. Okay.
You're good.
Okay.
I think you touched on a couple of really important things. I think like paying attention to the cues that people around you are sending. Like if you get, if I get, for example, like a couple of texts from my friends, because I mean, I can get into this sort of thing too. Yeah. It's usually a hybrid of work and whatever project I've got going on at home, or I'm rereading Moneyball for like the 20th time. like Matt, I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks or a month or so. Like, how are you doing? If I'm getting those kind of texts from people, it's usually like, oh, I need to rebalance. I need to, because
Yep.
I am too far indexed on the getting stuff done, exploration,
Yep.
like work sort of mindset, and I'm losing the stuff that is going to, because that's the other thing too. You'll be more, and I've found this about myself, if I'm not like taking care of myself and sleeping, if I'm not eating well, and if all I'm doing is work and I'm not taking time to just be with friends or rest and go to a meal or whatever, then my ability to get things done on a day-to-day basis is inhibited.
Yes.
If I'm like able to complete 10 things when I'm at 100%, I might complete 5 or 6 if I'm at like 70, something like that.
Yeah.
Do you experience that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very true. If I'm off balance, I don't realize like how either like not productive or like antisocial I've been until I get back kind of like fixed, and then I'm like, oh yes, okay, this is much better. Like my mind's not spinning so much. I'm able to actually focus for more than like 15 minutes at a time, or like I like now can see my friends and like, wow, I really like them. This is why I'm friends with them. Like I should remember to like not get so overwhelmed by other things that I don't like prioritize like relationships, because it's great when like you have friends that are like reach out and like are initiating things, but like sometimes like your friends are busy at the same time you're busy, and then it can go like too long, and then you're like, oh no, I haven't talked to them in a while, and then getting together is like, oh yes, this is like why community is important. So
Definitely. Have you ever experienced like the inverse of that, where like you're so connected to community that maybe you like, because I know this has happened to me too, where I say yes to too much stuff and then my work suffers because like this friend's calling me in the morning and then I've got breakfast with this friend and I'm meeting this friend for lunch in the middle of the day, and then I need to like duck out early to go to this thing. You ever experienced that?
Okay, well, kind of going with the homebody vibe. I'm also like pretty introverted, not the most introverted, but like definitely introverted. So like the effort of like hanging out with people is usually like the barrier I have to overcome. And like I love like seeing my friends. So it's not like, oh, I don't want to spend any time with them. It's just like the thought of like having to like put something on the calendar is like sometimes a lot. So
thank you for putting this on the calendar.
Yes,
for the record. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. This is good. I say like it's very funny because I feel like I'm a social introvert. So like this like is a one-on-one conversation. This is very good. This is like
love this. Yeah.
life-giving.
Yeah.
But when you're like in a very like loud social setting, like 20 people, 10 people, sometimes 5 people, depending on the people. It's like, okay, there's a lot of people. Like,
That's
I'm
enough.
going to just like be quiet and go home now.
You can stop reading from my autobiography anytime you want. Like, literally, same brain over here. I have friends who say that they're extroverts, and the way that they define that is when I am around people, I am gaining energy. And that is just a concept that is so foreign to me because I am spending energy when I am with people. And to what your point a second ago, oftentimes when people are like, hey, let's do this thing, hey, come to this party, I'm like, nah, that sounds exhausting. No, thank you.
I don't know the last time I've been to a party, and I'm pleased with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same.
But I love this thought of like balance and trying to make sure that the rhythms are enabling us to do our best work. And I know God is pleased with that.
Yes.
During the workday, do you experience like any friction on projects, and like do you experience frustration if things aren't going well? Like how do you deal with that? Like does prayer play a role or anything along those lines?
Like yes, there's work frustrations. I mean, I feel like when you care about what you're working on, there's going to be frustrations because like you want it to go well. So I think if you're never frustrated, then
you probably don't care about it.
Yeah, or you're just like super easygoing, and I mean that's good for you. But like I feel like more often than not, like a little bit of like I really want this to be good, and I don't feel like we're doing the best that we can, is like that sort of frustration is, I feel like, kind of healthy. The knowledge that like the people that I work with really want the best outcome for the customers, is like something that like helps me with it. And there's like a lot of people who are like very open about their faith, and like, so it's like, not only do they want the best thing for the people that we're trying to serve with like our product, but they also like are trying to do it with like a good, like with like a good like grounding, like a good heart, like it's not just like, oh, I care about these people, and like it's like they're coming at it from like, I know the same foundation that I'm coming at it from. It's like from like faith-filled, like relying on like God to like help like inform like what the best thing is to do.
There's that desire to do good, and it's grounded in a place of like, if they're being good Christians, which it sounds like they are. Yeah. It sounds like they're probably coming at it from a more humble servant mindset, which is like the example that Jesus said. I know plenty of people I work in the tech space, and to be fair, like I feel like tech needs to receive its due. Like there's a lot of very smart and great communicators and people who like genuinely care about the customer, but there are some egomaniacs who are just like, I'm the next Steve Jobs, look at me, like, and that would be a difference in motivation, where I'm sure that would probably rub you the wrong way more than it sounds like your coworkers do.
I just feel really lucky with the people that I work with. So it's kind of hard to be like, what would you do in all these bad situations? Because I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Like, I like respect the people that I work with. And I guess like, maybe that's like a thing that like, even if you don't know about someone's like faith background, like trying to like understand where they're coming from like a personal, like, how do they get to like the spot in the career they're at, and like having like some sort of like understanding of like their foundation can help give you like the grace to like figure out what to do in those tricky situations. And like also just like believe that like people have the best intentions at heart, because it's like, well, they came up with something that I didn't think was right, and it's like, well, maybe they didn't know all the like data points I knew, or maybe they knew some data points I didn't know, and they came to like the conclusion that they thought was best. They weren't trying to be malicious about it, and like weren't trying to like, I don't know,
break things on purpose.
Break things on purpose, like steal people's money and not like give them something that they ordered or whatever, you know? So I feel like that could be, because I'm like trying to think about like more like before I had talked about like faith in like the office, like kind of like earlier in my career, which was like, I was with people that didn't talk about it as much either. So, but I feel like having that mindset was kind of like helpful, because it's like, even if someone's like overworking me, they're doing it because like they want a good outcome for the client. They're not like overworking me just because like they think it'll be fun for me to like run these numbers 10 times. It's like, no, we got like more information. We're like trying to like have the best deliverable and like provide good value. So
yeah, definitely. I like a couple of things that you said there. One of them I'll touch on real quick, and then I feel like the other one is a really good segue to a topic that I'm meaning to get to. But I really love the idea of just actively reframing what's happening. Like I'll talk, like one of the advantages of working from home is I can talk to myself like I'm a crazy person. I'll be like, okay, Mathew, we're going to take a look at this Slack message. And I know that you're upset. And because my initial reaction to things not going the right way is like, someone is deliberately creating friction because they want to just make my day suck. Like that's like the super primal response that comes out of my brain. And I have yelled some 4-letter words at my computer because of it, because it's just like, one of the things is I'm like, I work by myself, so like I can yell those things and there's no HR department to come and yell at me. Excuse me, Mr. Mikulowski, that's the 4th that's the fourth F-bomb today.
Yeah.
We have a conversation, but taking the moment to recognize and like acknowledge and be deliberate about that. Like, okay, so here's what's actually happening. This person cares about their feature area. They care about their arm of the business, and they're trying to do good work. They're asking you for some help, and you doing this is going to help them meet their objective.
Yeah.
And when I frame it that way, and I'm deliberate, and I can catch myself in those moments, things typically go. It takes the edge off.
Yeah.
Like, do you experience that? Do you like talk yourself through these things, or?
Yeah. As an external processor, yeah, I have loud conversations to myself in my head, and then I'm like, oh yes, okay, I didn't say that out loud. That's probably good. But like, yeah, I feel like talking yourself down is definitely good, because I mean, all in all, people like are trying to be reasonable, but they think like their thing is the most important thing, which is also reasonable because like someone is telling them their thing is the most important thing. Whoever is leading them is like, this is what you've got to do, and they're like, okay, I've got to get people to help me do this thing because this is the most important thing. It's like, well, yes, but like not for me. But just like remembering that like people have pressure on them, is good. And then something you said reminded me, I was like, it's probably good that like I don't work from home because then I can like think about things and then go talk to people in person, because I feel like I would like get trigger happy with like the Teams like messaging, like the Skype messaging or whatever like system you use, and like
hey,
or like Slack, and like, well, no, not even like, hey, what's up, but like, I can't believe you just said that.
Oh, I gotcha.
Like, I feel like I might have it under control.
Like the reflex.
But, like, the reflex.
Oh, I
but
gotcha.
Like, I bet I'd be okay. I bet I'm just like.
I think you're probably being
talking
too
a
hard
good
on
game
yourself.
right now.
Yeah, I think you're probably just being hard on yourself.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with, and that's the other thing that I wanted to make sure we got to. It's like understanding where a person's coming from too. Yeah. So like there's taking an active interest in like, okay, what's important to you? Like if this is someone that you work with consistently, understanding what's important to them, even explicitly asking that, like, hey, Michelle, like we work together like all the time and I appreciate your work as a partner. Tell me what's important to you in your role. Tell me what your objectives are. Yeah. And if you tell me that, then, oh, okay, I have a sense of where you're aiming and I can hold that in mind as we're working together. Yeah. And then I might think of things that I can do to help you meet those. Yeah. And that kind of transparency like goes such a long way. And and it especially helps in circumstances, and I'm sure you've experienced this, where it's like, I have to tell somebody no on something. And by adding that context, it's like, okay, I don't think we can do this thing that you're asking right now, and here's why. We have 4 other priorities that have visibility from this level. Yeah. They are going to generate this impact for the business, but here's what I can do. Yeah. And I know this is important to you. Does that sound reasonable? Yeah. Like something along those lines goes a long way towards people being like, oh, you're not just being a jerk. If I anticipate that, okay, I need to tell Michelle no on this project. Yeah. If I just say no, Michelle's probably going to be confused because she asked for my help and I've helped her before on other projects. So the fact that I just said no without an explanation is probably going to be frustrating. Yes. And it's probably going to add friction to her day. So to avoid that suffering or prevent that suffering for you, here's how I'm going to frame this so you understand where I'm coming from. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's like another balancing act thing of like some people are like, they're fine with the no. And like, that's a weird thing for me to like think about, because like some people like ask a lot from a lot of people, and they're like, oh, like some of these ideas are going to get shut down or they're not going to be prioritized, and that's fine. Yeah. And I forget that like some people have that mentality. So like knowing those people, you could just be like, no, I can't get to it now. I'll put it in the back of the list. Right. And then knowing the people where it's like I've like put a lot of thought into this, and like I asked you because I like am ready for like this added value, and then like these are all the reasons I've thought about like why like I want to pull my data analyst for this project, and like knowing it's like, okay, these people, like what can I do for them? How can I explain this to them? Or a thing that like I really like at work is like when you can like teach people stuff, because like data analysts should not be the only ones that love numbers and that can like use them for their benefit. So it's like, okay, can I maybe not give this person what they're asking for, but spend like 15 minutes or half an hour like teaching them how I would like go about this, how I would think about this problem, or like
how I could use this tool that they have access to. And like,
Mhm.
it might not be exactly the way that like I would pull it, but like if I like, because I have access to like the back end database things.
Mhm.
But it's like, this is, so like I might be able to get a little more nuance and a little more exactly what they're asking for, but like this is going to get them pretty close. And it will
Mhm.
be able to like help them out. And
Mhm.
then I feel like that's like a really fun way to say no, because
Mhm.
then like you're sharing the love of what you do in your role with somebody else,
Mhm.
and also helping them not need you, because like
Yeah.
it's
You're
I mean,
teaching them how to fish.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like fun to feel wanted, but it's not useful. So like
Right.
if you have to be in every single conversation, like
Yeah.
people need to be able to like be empowered and like
Yeah.
feel like they can do it, because like oh, like for like I feel like specifically like data analysis, people are like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, oh, it's a numbers thing. It's like, no, you can do it. Like, I believe in you. And then like seeing like when people are like, yeah, I can do this. Like, yes, you can.
Yes,
like, this
you
is
can.
great. Like,
Yeah.
like feel excited. Like,
Yeah.
go make decisions like
Mhm.
that you feel really good about, as opposed
Mhm.
to like ones that you're not so certain about. And like,
Mhm.
obviously, there's like still like a role for me to play. It's not like I'm just like pawning off all my work on them, but it's really fun when it's like you can answer some of these questions for yourself, because then
Yeah.
like you can move faster because you don't have to wait for me.
Yeah, there's a ton of additional benefits to that, like by helping someone through that, because there's sort of two really distinct paths that I can see here.
Mhm.
There's a, you say yes, but then that thing that they're asking for becomes like the 50th thing on
Yeah.
your plate, and you're spread thin.
Yep.
And then they're asking and asking and asking, versus that empowerment like that you talked about
Mhm.
gives them the ability to get those answers.
Yeah.
And like now they can get those answers by themselves, because I'm
Mhm.
sure you've experienced this where like you need something at work
Yep.
and only someone else can do it.
Mhm.
So you have to go ask them for it. And then it's just, okay, when's that going to happen?
Yeah.
And they, if they're real good, they'll tell you when it's going to happen. But
Mhm.
most of the time it's like, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
And then you're just stuck
Yeah.
until they do.
Yeah.
So you're helping people get unstuck by like teaching them how to do data stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's a way more fun way to wait. Like, it's like, I'll wait by learning what you're doing.
Mhm.
And like, I mean, some things it's amazingly technical, and it's like, this is
Right.
I don't even have access to this program. Like, you let me know. But like when you can learn how to do it, then it's fun for you
Mhm.
too. Like, kind of on the flip side of that scenario. So.
Mm-hmm. I know a very little bit about like SQL, and
Mhm.
like I know how to manipulate a couple of the dashboards, because data analysts
Yeah.
at my company took me and they were like, hey, listen, stop asking me for stuff. Here's how you do this. And it
Yeah.
feels great when I can
Yeah.
like plug those things in and be
Mhm.
like, oh, cool, I got this trend line.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good feeling.
Yeah.
Being able to like upskill in that regard.
Definitely.
So we've talked a good amount, and this has been great. Like, thank you for being part of this.
Yeah.
I know we've talked a good amount about like the practical day in, day out, like
Mhm.
functions within jobs, where it's
Yes.
like, here's how you avoid burnout.
Mhm.
Here's how you communicate effectively with your coworkers. Here's how you choose a career path that's like meaningful to you, makes good use of your skill sets.
Mhm.
I'm curious about like, because this is something that is always really interesting to me, and I know people on both ends of the spectrum,
Mhm.
where evangelization in the workplace is really interesting.
Yeah.
I know some people who are like, do you have a couple minutes to talk about Jesus? Or like, have you
Yeah.
been to confession this month? Like, I'm not even Catholic, you know?
Yeah.
Like I know some people who have
Yeah.
asked those questions and have actually like seen some really good results.
Nice.
Probably not all great results, but they're doing some brave things for the kingdom. And then I probably would put myself in the latter camp, where like I usually ascribe to actions just speak louder than words. And if it feels natural to bring up like, oh yeah, I'm going to church this weekend, or
Mhm.
like they say this in the Bible or
Yeah.
something like that, I'll mention it then. But I always feel like I could be more courageous on the evangelization front.
Yes.
Like, what are your thoughts there? Like, what do you experience in that regard?
I feel like I'm probably more on your side, where it's like, try to be like a good person and then have people wonder why you do what you do. And like that consistency over time will like speak to your character. And then, I mean, I feel like human nature kind of tends towards like being selfish a little bit. So if like you're consistently not, then I feel like people eventually are like, okay, you're kind of like different from like the normal like climb up the corporate ladder or whatever.
Have you had those kind of conversations at work? Like, have folks asked you like, why, like, or tell me about you, or like, why do you do the things that you do? Because like, I think I've had a few of those. I don't know that I've been explicitly asked that question, but it's always cool when I get to like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, or like I'm specifically a Catholic, and like I feel really strongly about that. Yeah. And someone takes a genuine interest in it. That's really cool when I get to do that.
Yeah, I feel like I have had like a few of those conversations, but it's been more just like learning about like different faiths and like lunchtime conversations. Like we have like a pretty good like atmosphere where like people will like get lunch like not at their desks, so like you can actually talk to people, which like even when I was in like a workplace, I like didn't really do that. I still like tried to like eat in the little break room thing, because then like you're accessible, I guess, to like a conversation and talk to like some kind of interesting people that way. But I feel like the main way that I've like talked about like Catholicism specifically has been like talking about like, oh, going to church on Sunday. Yeah, me too. Which church do you go to? And like that, and that's kind of like opened the doorway for that. So I think definitely not like shying away from like, this is what I do on Sundays.
Right.
And like I do a lot of stuff with like some young adult groups here, and that's like, well, on Wednesdays I'm doing this, and on Mondays I'm doing this, and on Tuesdays I'm doing this. So it's like, so people are like, what are you doing this evening? It's like, well, I'm going to church again. So
that's
and like,
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like inviting people to those like we do like volleyball on Mondays.
Yeah.
So like inviting people to that are not Catholic, it's like you don't have to be Catholic to play volleyball. Like, you know, other people play volleyball too. It's okay. And like, I'm not like trying to convert you at volleyball, but it's just like, this is part of like my like social life, and like I like you as a person, and I'd like you to join. And like then if you're like interested in like what like we do at church and how it's different from your church or whatever, then like you can ask me, because like you feel more comfortable.
There's
too.
Like there's a trust.
Yeah.
You've sort of alluded to something a couple of times in this conversation, where it's like you take, and I've heard this said other ways too, where it's like there's this interest that you take in others first. It's not like, this person is not Catholic, so I'm going to lead with, hey, have you ever thought about becoming Catholic? It's like, hey, tell me about your faith, and like take a genuine interest in the person, and see if like you can build a relationship with that person first, and like for its own sake. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I know there's been times when I've, I don't know, been maybe a little too ambitious in that regard, and been like, I'm gonna like convert this person, but I'm gonna do it slowly. It's a little different, but like an interest in the person for their own sake, and then if it makes sense to invite them, like you said. I really like that idea, by the way. Like this is a group of young adult Catholics, and I know that. Yeah. I'm not going to advertise it specifically as that, but hey, come join us. And like, if that person feels at home in that space, then maybe it makes sense to like, if you've known them for a while and there's that level of trust, like, tell me what your relationship with God's like, and see where that conversation leads. I don't know. Does that track? Yeah, that definitely does. And I feel like it's nice to have, like, our Nashville young adult community as a whole does so many different things. Yeah. That it's nice because like you can invite someone to something and it can be like more on like the faith prayer side, or more on like the social or sports side, and like it's like, this is something I think you would like to do, and kind of like to your point of like, I'm going to convert this person out for a long time. I feel like that I would not be able to pull that off, but I feel like people like would be like, what is your ulterior motive? But like, because we have so many great like things in the area, it's like, no, I think you would actually like this one thing. So if you want to come to this one thing with me, you can. And then if you like and you want to go to something else, like, you know, some people that are not just me, and you can go to other things too. you're inviting them to community.
Yeah.
It's awesome to see what one interaction can do
Mm-hmm.
and how it can sort of like spark someone like really forming those ties
Yeah.
that make a big difference in their life. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I was gonna say one more thing on this topic before I
definitely
say another thing. Is that I went to Notre Dame. And I love Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame is very Catholic, and a lot of people know Notre Dame is Catholic.
Yeah.
So like this wouldn't work for everyone, but if you're a Notre Dame fan, this would work for you. Like at work, like I have like a Code Like a Champion sign on my desk, and it's like it's like a play off the Play Like a Champion sign. Like just like randomly typed it up and like got it up there. Not like an official thing, like piece of paper, but like even today, someone was like, "Oh, did you go to Notre Dame?" I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "You're Catholic?" I was like, "Yes, I am." And he's like, "That's cool." And then that was kind of it, but it's like kind of opened the door. And so I feel like that has been like going there has been a huge blessing, but like also just like having that as kind of like a conversation starter has kind of been like, well, like I'm not gonna not like post this like Notre Dame sign because like I love it. I love the sports teams. I love like the whole thing, but like it's also like very Catholic and like, but it's not like religious in a way that would get like shot down at like a place that is more like corporate, that's like no religious things. It's like this is a sports thing, which I mean, like for me it's both, but like I feel like there would be some of that like acceptance to like having that as like a conversation starter at like the office. And like I said, I mean if you're not a Notre Dame fan and you're listening, you should become one because they are the best. But like it's not for everyone, but like it's something that I have liked that like I've been able to do.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad that you brought that up. Having that, it's like an emblem. Having that emblem in your workspace.
Yeah.
And I feel like that in particular is really cool. And you sort of alluded to this, but I find it very difficult to imagine almost any company saying, that's a Notre Dame football sign, or like that's a Notre Dame University sign, take that down. Yeah. It's affiliated with something Catholic. I could see someone maybe being like, if you've got like a small crucifix on your desk or like a picture of Mary or something like that, I could see that lands in kind of a gray area. Yeah. But that's cool. That I feel like I need to go back and get a master's degree from Notre Dame now so I can have that in my workspace that nobody ever sees because I work from home, but still.
But you'll know it's there. When you're talking to yourself, you'll be like, okay, I've got Mary, I've got the dome. I could talk to Mary on the dome. Real fast, we'll have a quick conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
Rather than me talking to myself.
What if this might be blasphemous. Someone will tell me later. What if you had like Mary in like a Heisman pose? With like a football. Wow. That could be cool. And maybe it's baby Jesus.
I've never seen that, but like now I want to.
It's totally blasphemous. Well, I might cut that part out later.
That's okay.
Oh my gosh.
The other thing that I was thinking that would be kind of fun to talk about is just like at the beginning we were talking about like your talents, like what your like God-given talents, like what you're good at, and like your passions, which I feel like is also like God-given, like you're given these things that you care about, and you're given these things that you're good at, and like it's super fun when you can find a career that like brings them together, because then you're living in like a sweet spot. And like obviously sometimes like the way like career paths go, you're doing something as like a stopgap, something that like you need to like until you find the next job, but like being able to like have both of those and like this is what I want to do is fun from like a personal like side of things, but it's also great when you can like think about it and be like, this is like influenced by like what God has put inside of me, and like I care about this because of like how I was made as a person.
Interesting. So it's like sort of being in that place where all of those things line up, where there's interest and there's skill and there's contribution.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a company whose mission is like
Yes.
aligned with something Christian, at least.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool because it's sort of like an affirmation almost from God in a way that like, hey, you're in the right place and I made you on purpose for this. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, like, I feel like it's hard to get all of those things like lined up, but that's, I guess, like part of like the ideal career journey is like to get all of those pieces lined up. And like, even if you have all of that lined up, you're going to have bad days and like work's not going to be great because sometimes, you know, work's not great, but like being able to like be like appreciative and have gratitude and like this job, this career, like is using what like I was made to do and like using like what I like to do and basically like it's not just I fell into this, it was like God had a hand in bringing me to where I am.
Yeah, and then like to take that one step further, I can definitely look at jobs, good ones and bad ones, where I learned something in that role. Like I was contributing to the company's bottom line for sure.
Yeah.
But then there was also like some sort of lesson that I took away, some sort of skill set, which enabled me to like contribute in the next role. Like because of what I've been through here and because of how I've served here, God's like, okay, like you've spent your time there, come help some folks here. Like, do you experience that? Yeah.
Yeah. I like one of like my jobs that I had was not like my absolute favorite. I mean, there's always going to be one that's not your favorite if you've been in more than one spot. And that job, like I think about like the friendship that I made during that job and how it's like stayed with me like throughout other careers. And I'm like, when I like, even like in the moment when I was like, this is really like, I am not using my talents. Like, I feel like my brain like could be like applying itself better to like do something that I would be more excited about. I'm like, but I feel like I'm here because like I have a solid friendship. Like I have someone who like sees me. Like this was like at a time when like we had just moved to the area. So like I didn't really know that many people here. Like there was still like the like young adult community in the area, but I was newer and being introvert, I didn't want to go to like all the things, you know? So like so a lot of times like even in the moment of that job, I was like, I feel like I'm here because of this friendship. And like it is like the job taught me like things from like a like communication people perspective, some things from like an analytics perspective, but I feel like it like really taught me about like that community and that relationship
how
side
important
of things
that
and
is.
how important that is. Yeah.
Yeah. My first job out of college, I worked in Minneapolis for the Target Corporation, actually.
Okay.
I don't work for them anymore, so I can say that.
Yeah.
And I was in this rotational program, just likening it to what you experienced. It was not a great fit for me, and I didn't really feel connected. I'm sure you've experienced this too, where you work for a company where the next closest person to you in terms of age is like 10 or 15 years. And it's like, oh, what'd you do this weekend? Well, I mowed the lawn and had a kid's soccer game, you know, like, it's like, okay, like, that's great. That's awesome. So it was kind of like that for a while. But one of my really good friends at the time is this guy named Caesar. And we actually just caught up for the first time in like years recently. And it made me realize like how important that friendship was. Like, I don't know that I would have lasted 2 years at that company if it hadn't been for that friendship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. There's, I feel like definitely people that are like put in your lives at specific points in time. And that actually reminds me because I was in Minneapolis for quite a while for one of my projects. And I went to this awesome 2-story Target. I was like, this is fabulous. There's like an escalator for your cart. I've literally never seen anything like it since.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it blew my mind and I was very pleased. But I made a friend there who like, we'd go get dinner. Like this guy was on the project with me and I was like, I don't want to eat alone again. And he's like, I don't want to eat alone. Where do you want to go? So like after like the office, we like would go eat together. And I was like, wow, this is like,
this is great.
This is so great because it like, it's just nice to like have someone that like you can like be like, how is your family? What is your life like? As opposed to just like, do you have those numbers? Or like, how many reports did you get out today? Or whatever.
Yeah.
So like that friendship helped that project a lot. Because I mean, you really do need people to like get through some of the like the rough patches.
Yeah, and someone who cares about you as a human,
Yes.
not because of what your output is.
Exactly.
If I think back to my like least favorite job, and I might have told you this story before, but like this is just an example of the converse of that, where like you're valued exclusively for your output. That's what I was in this role.
Yeah.
I had spent maybe 3 or 4 days leading up to Christmas 2019, Christmas 2019. And I had spent a couple of days leading up to this with a couple of our integration specialists. So like we were a drug testing company that integrated with like a couple of other facilities. Like I think we worked with the NBA and a few other places, but we were working on setting up a process for integrating with new clients. And we had been working on it for a while. And my bosses, I think I was working with the CIO and one other guy, were like, this needs to get done. It has to get done.
Yeah.
And so 3 or 4 days leading up to Christmas, we were the last ones in the office, like leaving at 6:30, 7 some nights, just slogging away on this thing. And I sent a draft of it to my boss Christmas Eve morning. And I like was like, hey, here's the draft of the process. Here's what we think. Like, we think we can have new integrations done in this amount of time. Team has been working on it really hard. Let me know your thoughts. 15 minutes after I sent it, I'm like on my way to the airport. I get a little notification on my phone and it's like, it's not good enough. Do it over. Immediate, like, and as soon as I got that email, I was like, I'm never working here like ever again. I am immediately looking for a new job.
Yeah.
Like if someone can't respect the fact that it's Christmas Day and like, it's just gonna, anyway, I don't need to rant anymore. No. You get the idea.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, like, you're a person,
right? And right.
It's nice when like you're treated like a person,
right? Crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh man.
And like I get people being ambitious. I get it. Don't get me wrong, but like, and one thing that I'm really really grateful for is that like. That sort of information about what companies, and it's not perfect information, but information about which companies are more known for having those kind of cultures where it's like you are your outputs. That information is becoming more readily available and they are losing employees and it's incentivizing them to, hey, maybe treat people like people and then you'll have a workforce.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, like, the best workers are going to know that they can go somewhere else because like, they're like, do I need this spike in my anxiety? No.
No, I don't.
Can I do something that's equally or more valuable or even less valuable, but doesn't give me this like feeling of panic? It's like, yes, I'm going to leave. Because like nobody operates well in panic. And like, I feel like, going back to the balance thing, like if you have like not enough time to like breathe, or you're always in that like panic mode, then like that's like something is off, and like maybe it's like something that like you personally need to like reevaluate your priorities and like be like, okay, every request that comes in is not like top priority end of day, but like sometimes it's like just a terrible situation and you need to like,
and you just need to leave.
You need to be like, okay, like, I mean, you can pray about it, you know, like make sure that like it's like actually something that like you should be doing and it's not the first one. But I mean, like, probably if you're like, you're at that point where you're in panic all the time, it probably is not you. It's probably the situation. Like you need to like do something where like you have that breathing room to like have a relationship with God. Because like if you are like panicked all the time, how are you supposed to like have a relationship with other people, like including God? Like, like you're just trying to like breathe, eat and sleep and like work. That's not good.
Yeah, definitely. It like if your work life is in a place where this sort of came to mind a second ago. Have you read like Theology of the Body and all that?
No.
just one little quick quote.
Yeah.
So like the core idea of it is that human beings are not objects to be used. They are individuals with a rich inner life, and they are to be served. And so when your work treats you like an object, that just violates your God-given human nature, like everything that God has created you to be. And that by itself can throw everything else, like you're saying, in your life out of whack, where it's like, I don't have energy when I come home from work because I've been treated like an object all day. I can't sleep because I'm being treated like an object at work.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Michelle, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for sitting down. Any last thoughts that you want to share with our folks listening?
The main reason that like I really care about like work and career stuff is because you're doing it for like so much of your day that you want to feel like fulfilled by that. And like God has placed things like inside of you that you can like you can apply to like your job. So like the things that you care about and things you're good at are like given to you by God and how you were uniquely created. So being able to like find a good spot, a good like career or a good like company to work for that really like brings that out is just it's so good. It's like it feels good to feel that you've made a difference and that you've done something that like you were good at, and that like work doesn't have to be terrible. It can be good.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. Thanks again for being on this podcast, Michelle. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
Again.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.